Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samuel64, and welcome to the RoboCast. I'm joined alongside,
And it's 9132.
and we are tackling Jacara. Wait for it, Battlebots. Oh my goodness, it's happening. We've never actually tackled anything other than Robot Wars before, so we figured it's time to branch out. What do you reckon, Anderson?
Yeah, may as well. May as well go across the pond and see what the Yanks have to offer.
Well, it wouldn't be Battlebots. We'd have to have an American guest, and we have been joined very kindly by an American guest. Introduce yourself, sir.
Hello, I am Steve. I go by AmericanKilljoy on YouTube, but that channel hasn't seen a lot of light recently, so, hey, what's up?
Yes, Steve, much like Anderson, we have known each other for many, many, many years, and figured, you know what, it was only right to have an American on a BattleBots podcast. I think that's only fair, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and thank you for having me on. I really, I've listened to all the ones that you guys have done so far, and I mean, you guys have, I mean, it's great.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
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 Especially
Robot Combat brought us all together, so
yeah, it was
Oh,
only
yeah.
it was
sort
only
of fitting.
yeah, it was only fitting that we'd invite Steve on, and we're here to talk about BattleBots, specifically ABC's season 1. When I actually didn't discover this until after it aired. I think it was 2016 when Robot Wars was actually rebooted, because I was kind of, all things aside, I was kind of fell out of love with Robot Combat in around about 2011, 2012ish. I just kind of got bored with everything. And then I realised, oh wait, Robot Wars is coming back. I figured, let's look online, see what, things have changed in the last few years. And then I discovered that BattleBots had been rebooted in the States, and I was like, oh damn, that's actually really cool. And that's how I was kind of first exposed to the return of BattleBots, and it was, I mean, what a spectacle it was. I mean, coming back. I mean, obviously, Steve, I'm guessing you were pretty hyped when you realised it was coming back.
Oh my God, I was over the moon. Well, I mean, you can only rewatch the old ones so many times before it's like, man, I mean, it would be nice to have something new, because I know at least, I mean, over there and over here, they both had leagues that went underground. Like over here, it was the RFL and Robo Games, and then we have uh, Extreme Robots over there, and all that kind of stuff that's happening. And like, I knew there was advancements that were happening, but it was when it finally came back to TV, and there was like that shock factor, like, man, look how far that these machines have come. Like, I was so excited when it finally got announced. It was just, I was over the moon.
Anderson, what was your kind of reaction to BattleBots season 1? I'm guessing you kind of like me. You're just kind of like, oh wait, this is a thing that happened.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the original American BattleBots did come over, was broadcast over here, and I did enjoy it. Not as much as Robot Wars, because Robot Wars is British, so therefore vastly superior. But it was still pretty cool. What I liked about the original BattleBots was that you actually got different weight classes got just as much screen time as the heavyweights, which is nice. And that was something I was kind of hoping they'd bring back in ABC Series 1 or Season 1, sorry, because it's in America. But
Yeah, we
they
do that.
didn't. They didn't do that, unfortunately. But still, I'm not going to let that deter me. I did watch it, and it was all right. I'm not going to say it was amazing. I'm not going to say it was terrible. It had its moments. For a reboot after so many years, it was acceptable.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
Now, it has to be said, as much as I love the original Robot Wars, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest, knower of things in terms of the original BattleBots. I don't know many of the results and champions and such. I know a few, and I'm fairly, swatted up with original BattleBots, because as Anderson said, it was aired over here, but it was kind of vaguely, it was sort of like, on the cable channels, you get, kind of way down the list. It's sort of like that. You don't,
Yeah.
It was one of those where you just kind of like, oh, it's on. I just didn't realise it was on because I didn't see it advertised anywhere. So I didn't.
Yeah, and
Go on.
yeah, and over. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the one thing where it wasn't really on a major network, and then when it got announced and it was on a major network, like over here, ABC, CBS, NBC. If you're on one of those, you're gonna get watched.
Yeah.
So when it originally aired, it was on Comedy Central, which was kind of a niche little thing where like that was the channel that had picked it up years ago. And then when it disappeared, it's like, oh great. I mean, it was just one of those things like, maybe it won't get picked back up. Then when ABC came out and said, hey, we're bringing this back for the summer, you think, wow, this is actually going to get eyes now. It may actually stick around.
Which obviously it kind of did. I mean, ABC dropped it after 2 seasons, which I can kind of understand. ABC is one of those networks where it's like it has to have millions and millions and millions of hits. And I think BattleBots is a bit too niche for that. I think it's
or just be The Bachelor. You know, you could just be The Bachelor.
I mean, I don't want to see a combination of the two. That'd be quite scary, wouldn't it?
That would be odd.
But you know, I think
it's a question for you, Steve, just quickly.
Sure.
Being an Englishman, I don't live in America. I don't really know this sort of thing. But from all the names of the TV channels you just mentioned to me, is it a way of the American government or American television shows trying to teach the American public the alphabet? Just out of curiosity. So we've got ABC, we've got NBC.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry. That was mean. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What other one? CNN. We used to have.
Good lord. They're just all initials, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. ABC, American Broadcasting Company, CBS. What was it? I forget. Or no, TBS, Turner Broadcasting System. I forget what CBS is off the top of my mind. NBC, National Broadcasting Company. Like it's all they just like to just I don't know.
I can't really say much. We've got BBC and ITV, to be fair.
It's true.
Yeah.
But we will move on. We will gloss over the networks and we'll move strictly back to BattleBots. And the reboot itself, it came about quite quickly, and I think much like Robot Wars, the quality of the robots in the first rebooted series, they were good, but they weren't what everyone could do. Like there was more underneath.
Yeah. It definitely did suffer from it kind of just showing up. All right, guys, come on over. You got such a I don't know. Was it similar to Robot Wars? Like, all right, you guys got 3 months. Have fun, you guys.
3 months is a bit generous. 3 months is very generous.
3 weeks, weren't they?
Or I don't know how much time they were given. These are the times where I wish I had this stuff like on a sheet. But I'm sure they weren't given much time. And the fact that the robots were how good they were is a testament to how short the amount of time was, but also to the builders themselves to getting something that was really presentable on television.
Yeah, and as well as that, I think was it only 24 entries into the first season?
I think so. Aside if you don't count the ones that didn't quite make the show.
The reserve. I think the reserves have made up to, I think it was, I want to say 30, maybe less than that. I can't even remember. It really wasn't many. It was really quite a small field for you thought Robot Wars season 8 or series 8 was quite a small series. Oh no. No, it wasn't. Anyway, the format for ABC season 1 was, I think it was 24. And then 24 knockout fights, 12 of which go through, and then there were 4 wild cards brought back in by the judges. I think it was 4.
Yes, it was 4. Yes,
yes, so it would have been 24. Yeah, that's right then.
They didn't do 8 until the following season when they had a lot more show up.
Yeah, exactly. So they had 24 entries and obviously 4 wild cards brought back in for the judges, and it was just a simple knockout, 1-on-1, all the way to the end, which is I do enjoy. And obviously they did have rumbles in there eventually, but I just I just prefer rumbles. I don't know about you guys. I think there's just more drama in a 3-way fight or a 4-way fight.
Yeah, you've kind of been taught and through Robot Wars that a rumble is really where all the carnage happens, because it's what was it since series 4 onward, they had just big rumbles and all this metal and stuff flying around, it's just mayhem. And over here you have something more akin to a boxing fight 1-on-1.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I will say this as well. I prefer heat structure rather than just 4 random battles each episode. I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I grew up with that, but I just think that having set heats, I just think it works a bit better that way. But I'm not gonna. That's just me being nitpicky.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because obviously, I'm sure as an American, Steve, you'd probably say actually this is the way that I'm used to it, and I think this is better. But it's
that's pretty much where I stand because it's what I know. I mean, I watched both shows. I watched a lot of Robot Combat shows, clearly.
Oh, Robotica! Bring back Robotica! Come on, guys.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Americans, right? We want a reboot of Robotica. Brits, we want a reboot of Techno Games. Do it. Thank you.
Yes, let's make it happen.
I'm more akin to the bracket structure that we had over here, where it's just kind of you just win so many rounds, and if you get to the end, you get to the end. So that was just what I was raised on. So
I think another thing that's quite noticeable from
She's being nitpicky too.
yeah, I do think from season 1 you get the impression as well. Like, particularly season 2 brings this up a lot more, but it's much BattleBots is much more of a sport, whereas Robot Wars is more entertainment. I think go on. Like it's just sort of that's the way I see it. Like you can see how they're pitched as these like incredible pieces of engineering, and obviously that happens in the UK as well, but it's not quite on the same scale. I think in the US it's everything's just like obviously it's in America everything's hyped up to maximum, but it's just the way I see it is it's definitely seen as a sport rather than an entertainment.
Right, and there's kind of something I could draw a parallel here, and I'm sure it's been drawn before, and I'm sure maybe we have talked about it. But like Robot Wars is to wrestling as BattleBots is to boxing.
Yeah.
Where like wrestling is purely like it's entertainment, but I mean there's obviously a lot going on in those kinds of fights. Mm-hmm. But it's not to say that they're scripted. Oh god. But you know what I mean.
just like the classic series, yeah.
That's why Chaos do one twice.
It makes sense.
But like we have a ring announcer, we have corners, we have it's the way it's presented. It is kind of more akin to a sport, and that's also why I was kind of happy that ABC picked it up, because ABC is owned by Disney, and Disney also owns ESPN over here. Mm-hmm. So I was hoping that marriage of sport and sports network would have been good, but as you know, it didn't end up that way.
No,
everything's owned by Disney. I'm owned by Disney.
I wish I was owned by Disney. I will say that I'm off topic slightly. I am happy that we are going to see season 3 on Discovery. I think that's a really good home for it, and I hope that Discovery.
I think the show is finally home, because I think, and I've seen Twitter posts from producers that like I think they're finally going to be able to do what they wanted to do on ABC.
Mm-hmm. And I really think that Discovery will look after BattleBots. It's a really nice fit, and I hope, fingers crossed, we'll see lots of seasons to come. But we'll have to see about that in the future. Anyway,
hopefully it won't be so over dramatized.
I will say, I am glad that we're going to see Farouk. Farouk in season 1 and 2 of BattleBots is excellent at hyping up. Mm-hmm. I know Mark Biero was quite good in the original show. Farouk takes it to the next level. He is an absolute dude, isn't he?
He's really, he really matches what a ring announcer, like he matches that part very, very well.
Yeah, and that's a good segue to go on the host, isn't it?
Well, the hosts are, I think it's Kenny Florian, who is he's a
UFC fighter.
He's a UFC fighter, which is kind of
a fighter.
Yeah, he's a UFC fighter, and then there's Chris Rose, I want to say his name is.
Chris Rose does sportscasting over here for the NFL majority.
Okay. So there, again, sports commentators and fighting commentators or experts. So it's kind of interesting to see how these different aspects come in.
Mm-hmm. And this year we also had I think for season 1 it was Molly McGrath, who was like the head host, while Chris and Kenny were like commentators.
Mm-hmm.
So,
she was
they're all
bloody pointless. She did nothing. She stood in front of a green screen, said something that didn't have anything to do with what was going on, and then buggered off. Oh, cheers, thanks.
We've all been there. We have all been there.
At least we have all been there. No, in all fairness, the commentators are pretty good.
No,
they're better than Tim Green and Bill Dwyer. I'll give them that.
I tell you what,
here's the thing: where the big difference between. Oh, sorry, Sam. But the big difference between this particular iteration of BattleBots and the old ones were that the commentators for the old ones used to watch the matches in post. Where here they watch them live. So you get completely different kinds of you won't have any planned commentary for that. Like they couldn't like feed you information like, oh, this is what's going to happen. Be sure to say this when this happens in said fight. Yeah. So this was more like immediate reaction. I
will say that I think there is, as you mentioned, that most of it is like I think there is some stuff in post as well. Mm-hmm. But I think the live commentary works really well, and I know that a lot of it's just like usual clickbait.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh my god. That sort of stuff. It's not terrible.
Oh my god, Kenny!
Yeah, they love a huge hit there as well, don't they? They do love a huge hit there. But you know what?
You must feel you must feel those hits.
Oh, he feels those huge hits there. But you know what? I do. And obviously when we get to season 2, the primary weapon. Got to use that primary weapon. But you know...
I don't talk about that.
you know what, BattleBots Season 1, it has its issues, but I really do like it. Shall we move on to the robots?
Sounds like a plan.
May as well.
And the fights. So our first fight, BattleBots has been away for a long time. Our first fight back is Icewave and Razorback.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy!
I think this was a very ideal fight to put on as the first one back. The first fight in the first episode is the one you need to draw the audience.
Wow,
it's arguably the most important.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that you want to make sure they stay invested. And seeing Icewave's big bar spinner, I'm not going to say that with this stupid voice.
Do it, I dare you.
No.
Okay.
It's American.
All right.
Sorry, we're in America here. They don't believe in bar spinner.
That kind of love, unfortunately.
But no, I think this was a really good fight, to be honest. And fair play to Razorback. They held their own until it got wrecked. So yeah.
I do want to talk.
Stack Beaver, he's been around a while. I
was going to say, wasn't he in the original BattleBots? He wasn't he? I'm sure.
He was. He had the El Diablo robots.
Oh wow! I mean,
yes. No, Grande, fantastic.
I will say, a lot of the robots, even though they had a very limited time to get things going for BattleBots, Season 1's machines do look. I mean, Icewave looks really pretty. It's got this, really nice blue look and the red bar, which is longer on one side than the other. You can't actually see where the bar is. It's fantastic. I love that.
I will be honest, I didn't believe in the potential of it when I first saw it. I thought petrol, really? And then I saw it spin up to speed, and I was like, "Ooh, oh, daddy,
Yeah. I have
that's going to do something."
It is, and I will say, I feel really bad for Razorback because it is such a lovely engineered machine as well. Like, it's all CNC, I think it's all CNC sides, and the claws are all machined out of one piece of metal. It's just a beautiful looking thing. And it just gets shredded in seconds by Icewave. It really does. But the noise that Icewave makes as well is, obviously it is a petrol engine, it's going to make a heck of a noise. Oh my, it does make a heck of a noise.
It's a different kind of death hum.
It's a violent shriek, if anything, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
It's orgasmic.
Yeah, and I really do like that fight. It's a really nice way to say, look, we're back with a bang, quite literally.
Yeah.
We'll move on.
But
obviously, Icewave winning that fight and making it through to the last 16. Our next fight was a bit slower paced. We have Plan X and Rex. They also rhyme. How about that?
Slower paced is a way of putting it.
Well, Rex interests me as well because Rex is a robot that doesn't have any way of locomotion at all.
Right. Yeah. It's entirely gyroscopic precession, and that's it.
Yeah, which is fascinating. It's so cool. The fact that it moves off its weapon power.
It's not very practical, but it's such an awesome idea. I just love how it just waddles along. It's all.
And its really weapon is so good. It's so strong.
Yeah. It's just getting it to hit things.
Yeah, when they can get it to hit something, it works. This Plan X, right? I was actually a little bit upset because I felt, again, I can understand there's a bit of a rush job and all that, but I wasn't overly impressed with it. I thought it just looked like a big bunch of random scrap stuck together. It looked like how I'd imagine napalm would look in a few years' time. You know what I mean? And
Plan X
that's not me being horrible. I'm just saying it just was really random, and also the spinning hammer didn't make any sense because it spun the wrong way.
Well, I think that was because they think they wired that wrong, didn't they, in the first fight or something along those lines? Yeah. But Plan X, go on.
Oh yeah, like I understand what Anderson's saying about it, like being kind of like an erector set kind of looking thing.
Yeah, but it literally was. It was literally built. Yeah. It was a kit bot. It was one of Lisa's own kit bots, and she entered it into BattleBots because I think obviously limiting time factor. I can understand why they'd enter that. It wasn't terrible. It worked. It didn't break down once, which is good. And maybe a bit fortunate to go through in round 1. I'll have to be honest, but.
Yeah,
that's a discussion for another. It got shredded to shit.
Yeah, well, that was armor that was meant to break.
Seconds. Mate, in the last 10 seconds, it got hit once.
Mate, you fight to the buzzer, man. You fight to the buzzer.
I'm sorry. Okay, by that logic, then, right? Okay, in your opinion, right? Okay, here we go. Logic time, right? By your logic, there, a robot, so say a hit disc, could have absolutely wrecked someone But then because another robot came along and tapped it at the end, therefore it loses the match. There we go. No, piss off. Stupid. Sorry.
It was.
It's there to win. Man up and deal with it. Thank you.
All right, maybe I'm just bitter that Rex didn't win any fights ever. But you know what? I will say it was a fun fight nonetheless. I think Rex. It showed that gyroscopic precession could work as a form of mobility, but for the love of God, don't.
I like the fact that it's a could, that's what's cool about designs like this, and what was cool about one of Lisa's designs in BattleBots with Tanemushi, it didn't necessarily wow, but it was just you could do it. It was the fact that you could do it.
And to be fair to Rex, it was very tough. I mean, it's armor. I don't know what the hell that stuff was made of, but it was pretty strong.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. We'll move on. Obviously, Plan X winning that fight with Rex. It did actually get a wild card either. They needed Razorback, did they? So that's a shame. We didn't really get to see much of it. I don't blame them for not giving Razorback one because I think it was pretty done. But
yeah,
no wild card for those guys. Warrior Clan and Nightmare. This was a good fun as well. You got to see Nightmare send one of Warrior Clan's mini-bots to Kingdom Come. There was nothing left. No, thank you. No, thank you.
It got completely dismembered.
It blew up. It was great. Obviously...
There was nothing left in itself.
No, there wasn't. I mean, obviously, we all know Nightmare isn't the most effective of robots. Anderson, I know you have a particular bone to pick with Nightmare, don't you?
I don't like Nightmare at all. I think it's completely overhyped. I think it's done like 2 good hits in its entire career, and one of them it killed itself against Slam Job.
It is a bit of a glass cannon.
A bit.
It is the glass cannon, but you know what? you know what? Nightmare is BattleBots. You look at Nightmare and you think, wow, that looks awesome. It looks great. It doesn't necessarily go great. And I do think Nightmare is battle. As I said, it is the BattleBot that you think, oh wow, oh yeah, that massive disc thing. I remember that. It's.
If you were to ask anybody if they remember anything about the original BattleBots, there's 3 robots that would come to mind, in my opinion. They are Vlad the Impaler, Nightmare, and Biohazard.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If it's managed to get into the one of them, it's like those 3 are like our version of Razor, Chaos 2, and Hypnodisc.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You think
all heavyweights, by the way.
They are, yeah.
All heavyweights, yeah. Typical.
I think also that's one thing we didn't really touch on was the fact that they got rid of all the other weight classes and only kept the one.
I doesn't mention that
because they used to have a lightweight, a middleweight, and a super heavyweight, and now all they have left is this.
It did surprise me because of how big different weight classes are in America at the moment. I mean, because you've got so many over there now, haven't you? You've got Mantis weight, you've got Fairy weight, you've got you've got one called Hobby weight, sports. You got sportsman class as well. I mean, you literally felt the need to name a class of robot after the Scrobot team. I don't get it. The sportsman, why?
You should
you guys complicate. But yeah, no. So maybe that might have been why. Maybe it's just a case of there was so many to choose from that they thought, fuck it, I just go to heavyweights. But
that's the thing, like boxing, those were the fights, were the hard hitting fights. The heavyweight fights. Let's go watch those. And I guess that sort of kind of eked into this a little bit, and the heavyweights are just those are the ones that everyone's really focused on and really build up. And I mean, Robo Games, we have all kinds of classes over there. But yeah, it's a lot of thoughts obviously been putting to this, and I mean, it seems to be the right class for this side of the.
I think for TV, I think it's the right weight class, isn't it?
Yeah. But anyway, the fight itself.
Nightmare blew up a mini-bot and then got flipped over. The end.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
that was a perfectly timed flip by Warrior Clan, though. Give them that.
Oh, it was. Play. Yeah, it was absolutely.
Because Nightmare's, despite its high ground clearance, I think it's because of that it's quite difficult to flip because there's not really much you can get a flipper can get purchase on.
You have to get the wheel spot on, don't you?
You have to get the wheel spot on.
And that involves going near the disc.
Exactly.
And you don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Obviously, Warrior Clan winning that fight. Sadly, well, maybe not for Anderson, but sadly, Nightmare doesn't get a wild card this time around. Maybe we'll see some more of it in season 2, maybe. I think the final fight for the first episode was Warhead and Bite Force. Now, obviously, Warhead, obviously, we're in Battlebot season 5 in the original run, and obviously very famous over here. They built. What did they build?
Razor.
Oh, Razor, that's it. Razorblade.
That was
Razorblade. That's the one.
that was it. Some robot that I think broke down a bunch of times. Never really amounted to anything.
No,
they're
of
really
course,
bad against Team Cold Fusion.
Of course, we're talking about they built Razor and they also built Warhead. Now, Anderson and myself, I think we appreciate Razor, but we don't actively like Razor. I actively like Warhead because it looks so damn sexy.
I love Warhead. I absolutely adore Warhead. It's everything that I don't like about Razor. Sorry, everything that I wish Razor had. It's exciting, in my opinion.
It's quick. It's nippy.
I think it's quick. It's nippy. It's got more. I think it's got more personality behind it, really, because it's got the wings and the tail, and then of course it got absolutely owned.
Yeah,
Bite
this
Force.
is an example of an art project that works as a side to like Plan X as an art project that maybe could have been better.
This is proof that, because I don't. You might know better than me, Steve, but I don't know how much they actually improved it since it was last on.
Oh, they didn't. They didn't at all.
Yeah, I think it literally sat and then they charged the batteries and showed up.
It's
So
much.
basically,
It reminds me.
shows that lack.
No, go on,
So I
sorry.
was just going to say, it shows a bit of a lack of update could obviously let you down, and that's. I mean, to be fair, it was up against Bite Force, which is in no means a slouch of a robot, and that it has that spin killer wedge on it. Don't get me wrong, but I just think that a bit more of tweaking might have sorted them out a little bit there. But who knows?
I think what this shows is obviously, of course, the Razor team entered Razor into Series 8 and it immediately lost. And I think it showed in both programs just how far robots had come. I mean, obviously, Razor wasn't exactly setting the world on fire against Killy, Cranky, and Nuts when it lost. And obviously, Warhead was bullied around the ring by Bite Force. So it just shows how far the sport had come in that time. You know, a successful and iconic robot from the past was now just sort of there.
Yeah, and it also kind of shows how the sport has evolved with Bite Force, where it being just this box that you can't get in there. It's so hard to beat.
Yeah,
it keeps coming at you. It's hard to stop that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Warhead did get a wild card, so we'll see it again later. But Bite Force won the fight against Warhead quite convincingly. It was very, very impressive.
We can't forget the suplex that happened in this fight.
When he grabbed it by the chin, it grabbed it by the teeth and slammed it down. It was great.
Those little forks, they were really effective both by himself or with the crusher. I think that's really cool as well, because some people build a weapon like that and they only work well with the other part of the weapon, but those forks work just fine by themselves, as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So obviously that was the first episode. Episode 2, we moved on. I think it started with Bronco and Witch Doctor.
I think so. It's been quite some time.
I can't exactly remember. We'll just say it's Bronco and Witch Doctor for the sake of...
Yeah, because it does show up in this episode no matter how.
It does. And Bronco absolutely destroys Witch Doctor. It just launches it straight in the screws and that's job done. Although, with that said...
Witch Doctor's one of your favourites, isn't it, Sam?
It is one of my favourites. I have to say, though, it did start off, very well with Shaman getting underneath and flaming the bottom of Bronco. That was quite cool.
They got a pretty promo shot out of that, didn't they?
Oh, they did. I have to say,
Flaming the bottom.
yes. In fairness, though, as Anderson mentioned, Witch Doctor is probably one of my top 3 favourite BattleBots from the reboot, certainly. Bronco's certainly up there, too. Bronco's just such an amazing piece of engineering. It's so refined. Inertia Labs have obviously been around for a long time. They've won BattleBots before with Toro. Bronco's just something special. It's like a refinement of Bronco, from Toro from the previous run of BattleBots.
Yeah.
So
T-Minus, the Matador, they had all kinds of basically what their whole philosophy was like, oh, you're going to come down really hard with a ram overhead. Why don't we just flip that upside down and shoot you to the sky?
Yeah, absolutely. And
I
go on.
Sorry.
No,
No, you go. You go. You were saying you were speaking. You go. Go.
My thing with Bronco is like, obviously in America they don't use CO2, they use nitrogen gas, and like the power that Bronco kicks out is just ludicrous, really. Like it just
Is there a reason for that? Sorry, just quickly. Is there a reason for
nitrogen is
that?
more powerful.
Yeah, but I know, but it's like CO2 is banned over there for some reason. I don't know why that is.
I don't know if it's banned.
I don't think it is either.
It is because I remember reading it up. Because Apollo.
Do I think it is?
Was chronic, and chronic had to have nitrogen instead of CO2.
I believe what it is because it's recorded in LA. Obviously, it's a lot warmer, and I think there's issues with the bottles of CO2 being kept at too warm a temperature. Obviously, there was issues in Robot Wars for the exact opposite reason, but yeah, apparently it's because it's too warm.
To be fair, I read that online, so it could probably be a load of bollocks anyway. I don't know.
I don't remember.
You can believe everything on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to add to Bronco and Witch Doctor? It was a good little scrap, to be fair, wasn't it?
It was short but sweet, really.
I wish there was a little more damage done. I wanted to see that disc actually rip the sides off of Bronco in this fight, but it just wasn't meant to be.
See, I've got a soft spot for flippers that don't work like normal flippers. If that makes any sense, like the generic wedge-shaped flipper.
The ones that you've gotten, the ones that you've grown akin to seeing on the live circuit, like the rear hinge launcher flipper. The British flipper.
Sam will be able to tell you this, right? I've got a soft spot for front hinge flippers. I love Gravedigger, I love Firestorm, I love VMAX, that robot from Series 4, that's a brilliant robot in my opinion, even though it never amounted to anything. And I'm also quite a fan of the Toro-esque flipper, the sort of form where it like hangs over the side, sort of, over the edge sort of thing. I don't know why, I just like it. I think it's cool how it just goes up a little bit, but somehow they go flying so far. I don't know, but it's really entertaining. Witch Doctor, I'm not a massive fan of, I'll be honest, but it was a good fight.
To each their own.
Yeah, one of those things. Bronco obviously winning the fight. Witch Doctor does get a wild card, and we will see it again later. Moving on, we have Overhaul and Lockjaw.
Controversy.
So here's an interesting point. Donald Hudson had previously entered with Dissector, which is kind of like this robot's kind of granddaddy, I guess you could put.
Yep.
If you kind of had to think, because Dissector was a champion when it went off the air, so it would kind of be interesting to say that this is a returning champ. I guess it would be say that he would be the defending champ. I guess if we had extended the reign.
That was the super heavyweight champion, wasn't it? They won.
Yes.
Yeah, because they was. If I'm right in thinking, Biohazard was the last heavyweight champion, the last middleweight champion was T-Minus, and the last lightweight champion was Dr. Inferno Jr.
Yeah,
don't ask me why I know that. I just do.
Yeah, that was. You know why that is? Because that was like the final frame on the BattleBots website for months until they finally closed it.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
So
sorry, we were on a tangent there. Sorry.
I mean, that's perfectly fine. Donald obviously has a lot of experience, and these kids from MIT come along with Overhaul, which is a damn fine machine. Like, let's not get that mistaken. It's a really nice looking thing. It's interchangeable shuffler and wheeled robot. It's not painted. I like how rustic and ready it looks. It looks really mean, and it looks like it can give you tetanus if you touch it. It's a really nice looking thing, Overhaul, and Overhaul's really doing a number on them throughout the fight, and then Donald trying to make up points at the end. I think he got a little bit overexcited.
Possibly, yeah. Oh, what time is it? -5? Okay, cool. I'm gonna get him now.
No, it's not -5. The buzzer went off. And it was like a second before contact, if that.
Yeah, and then he stops.
They kind of drum it up in a way where it's like, oh, he hit him way after the bell, but I mean, it's still a late hit.
I have to say, I think it was obviously played up for camera.
It was still late. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I agree, it was a late hit, but I think it was more of a case of the buzzer literally went, and he didn't have enough time to respond to the buzzer going off.
Maybe a little bit of ABC reality TV in here.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's every chance.
I think it was a mixture of the both of them, really. To be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and obviously,
good fight.
Oh, it was a brilliant fight. It was back and forth, and eventually
Crap.
Lockjaw just about sneaking through. with Overhaul getting a sneaky wild card. I wonder if that might come up a bit later. We'll have to wait and see. So before Ghost Raptor and Complete Control, this was just a banter fight all around, wasn't it? Really, the present. Let's just talk about the present for a start.
Oh, that.
Derek Young. Derek Young, I love for so many reasons. One, his robots are fantastic. And two, he's a character. And three, he likes to push the boundaries, and I love that. It's bloody wonderful. And I think that this fight in particular is just one of those where he just like, do you know what? He saw a spot in the rules and touche. Fair play, my man.
Yeah, and this robot, I think, is my favorite BattleBots robot. Just purely because of just. Oh yeah, it has to be for me. It was cool to see it get an update. It looks space-esque.
I was saying this to Sam earlier before the podcast. I was saying that one thing I loved about, you know, like I said, we saw some really cool designs in the original BattleBot, especially in the lightweight categories. And Complete Control was easily one of my favourite middleweights, along with SOB.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that basically he came back, I always kept thinking to myself, imagine what a heavyweight version that looked like. Well, imagine what that would look like if it was on steroids. Mm-hmm. And we now have it, and I'm really happy. Oh, yeah. And of course, it's really nice to see Ghost Raptor get on the web for a change. Oh, sorry.
Oh, dear me.
Saber-toothed cat, let's go.
Oh,
Saber-toothed cat, I love it. Thank you, BattleBots Update, for that. Apparently, a bit topic aside, we're going to go to probably talk about it more in season 2. But apparently, obviously, the guy, I can't remember the guy's name who runs BattleBots Update. But he was at season 2 and he had a poster of Saber-toothed cat, and Chuck just looked straight at him and just walked straight past him. He just like, no, thank you, not dealing with this today. It was great. I love it. Eventually, Complete Control lost because it pinned itself to the floor, which is a bit of a shame, really.
That pissed me off.
It backed up, and this is probably the reason why that back fin isn't on the new one that came back for the second reboot season. It hits a seam in the floor where the Hellraisers come up, and it ruined the drive somehow, and I don't know.
I think it bent the scoop underneath the back wheel, so it couldn't really drive properly. I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. So Ghost Raptor, despite destroying its own weapon, managed to go through, and that kind of ruins the rest of the. Well, it doesn't ruin the rest of the competition, but like, I missed that bar. I wish we could have seen more of it in action, but sadly we don't. That's the only fight. Speaking of bars, Counter Revolution versus Tombstone. Very close, tense fight, this one.
I mean, they just scraped through, didn't they, Tombstone? I mean, it was literally. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't get a hair between it. That was how close it was.
It was. Yeah. I'll tell you what. It was. I couldn't pick a winner. I really couldn't. But it was. I mean, it came down to points. I can understand why they gave it to Tombstone. I'm joking. Tombstone shagged it. Jesus wept. There was,
and it's kind of sad because Counter Revolution is no slouch.
It's
but
it's a great robot.
Yeah.
It was actually Counter Revolution was actually a reserve initially. Do you know who it was replacing?
Chronic, wasn't it?
Nope, it wasn't. It was Beta.
Yeah.
Oh yes, of course.
I was gonna add that. Yeah, the Beta curse is real, at least in this season.
Is it pronounced Beta or is it Beta?
It's Beta. It's Beta.
It's Beta.
It's Beta because it's got a hammer. It beats people.
Oh right, so it's a clever pun. Got you right. Okay,
yeah.
Fair enough.
And because it's in America, it's pronounced Beta. If it was obviously, it wouldn't work if it was entered in Robot Wars, would it?
No, yeah, because we pronounce things properly over here.
Yeah, exactly. Tombstone just sent. I mean that shot of Tombstone, that shot of Tombstone destroying Counter Revolution. Goodness me! I mean,
it was over in what 2 hits, wasn't it? It hit it once, wrecked it, and then he said, "Do you want some more?" Like he usually does. They said, "Yeah, go on, geese." He was like wallop, and it went flying across. Because I mean that I don't know. I know that obviously heavyweight weight allowance was increased over here. Has the heavyweight weight allowance increased over there, Steve? Or is it?
So I believe what happened was the Robot Wars weight limit was increased to accommodate for the fact that BattleBots had increased. It was 250, and I believe
was it gone up to 250? Because I know it was 220 back in the day.
It's £250 for heavyweights, which is pretty much 110 kilos as far as I'm aware. So they're very comparable in terms of weight now.
Well, yeah, because what they were back then, because 220 pounds is 100 kilos.
Yeah, so it's just to accommodate for the. So we accommodated for the Americans this time.
Yeah, and what's interesting is like when you see Counter Revolution fly through the air, I don't know if it comes through on TV well enough that thing is literally so heavy.
Yeah, that's 250
like a feather
pounds.
flying through the air.
Yeah, it absolutely gets shagged. There's no other way of putting it.
Let's put it into consideration. I mean, it's that there is, I think, the same as half an American. I think it's about half an American.
Why did I join to do this again?
Sorry, dude. Sorry, I'll stop being mean now. I'm sorry.
Oh, dearie me. Much like in the original BattleBots show, there were some fights that were kind of briefly touched on, but there were more highlights. There was 4 fights, I think 4 fights in the
there were
in this series, which were Stinger versus Captain Shred Raider, which Stinger went on to win. Stinger the Killer Bee.
very good fight.
It's a very short fight, yeah.
Didn't Captain Shred barely work?
It was working. It just got flipped over, yeah. Overdrive versus Chomp is the other one. Yeah. Overdrive and Chomp is another one. Which I can't remember who was it. Overdrive that won.
Overdrive won, yeah, because Chomp got pushed up onto the screws, and that was the end of it.
Ah, yeah, that's it. The other 2 were Hypershock versus Mohawk, which is really
Easily
funny.
the best fight. Easily the best.
Yeah, it is the best fight, and it's funny because I think it's Will Bales' brother, isn't it, on the Mohawk team, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice to see those two get a family fight. That's quite fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, yeah, and then the other one, oh boy,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Radioactive versus Sweet Revenge.
So this is what you guys bring over BattleBots.
I know. It was the Behemoth team as well.
Shut up.
It's the Behemoth team. The Behemoth team are meant to be good.
Like, you know it's bad, right? When they would probably have had a better chance of done better entering anti-B over there. You know, I mean, because they. Oh, it's so bad. I'm sorry, and if you're watching, I love you, but dude, what the hell?
This is actually Kane's machine. This is Kane's machine.
Oh, is it Kane? Oh, there you go.
That's mean.
It's a spectacle to watch, and that's about it.
That's mean. Come on now.
I'll admit, it looked cool. To be fair, it looked really cool. But the axe I think had the same power as Sergeant Meekles from Series 3. They just down and tap throw once, and the fact that Sweet Revenge didn't even move in the battle, man.
We'll get to what happens to Radioactive in a bit. It gets what it deserves, I think, because I think even that team, I'm sure they spent a lot of hard time and work on Radioactive, but I think they're probably happy what happened to it, really.
And Sweet Revenge, they're what is it? Nola Garcia. She was on. If you remember, Once Upon a Time, Buddy Lee Don't Play in the Street. Team Loki.
No way! I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, same lady.
Also right in thinking, because that name does sound very familiar. She was also on the Rammstein team in the War of Independence in Series 4 as well.
Yes. Which would make sense. Team Loki, it's the same guy.
Yes, Team Loki, which is also quite. I tell you what, right? I mean, I swear, BattleBots is literally run by 4 teams because they also had Surgeon Jet. They had so many robots.
Yeah, they were prolific with how much they had. There was it Turbo too? Was another one that was a middleweight.
They had Turbo too. Memories.
Yeah. Just not this time.
Oh yeah.
Never mind. So obviously, those are the machines that went through and went out. Then in the I think it was the last 16 or was it quarterfinals now? Last 16.
Last
16.
And then quarter. And then semi-finals.
Yeah.
Yes.
So our first last 16 fight was Icewave and Chomp. Icewave was really starting to warm. I think at this point, obviously, Icewave was ranked at number 2 for the remainder of the tournament. Obviously, the seeding worked in a sense where they were the second favourite to go and win, judging from first round performance. And Icewave was really starting to warm up quite nicely. I thought it was going to be a contender towards the end. It was really strong in its first round, and here against Chomp as well, it really laid in.
Yep, it's like Hazard with a gas engine, basically.
Yeah.
Hazard, a very dominant middleweight robot over here.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, won three championships back to back. So
yeah, it's pretty impressive.
There was not back to back.
There was a hiatus in between.
It was
there was a hiatus in between.
But I remember thinking to myself when I saw season 2, why did they go to an axe bot for the new Chomp? You know, why didn't they just improve the last one? But then I remember there wasn't much left of the last one to be improved upon. So fair enough.
It's not wrong.
Better to go back.
Poor Chomp. I mean, he got a wild card. I don't think they wanted a wild card really after that fight, did they?
That's all right, lads. We'll go home. Cheers.
Yeah,
so you want something that like I was at BattleBots, you know. I wanted to actually have come home with a couple of scars, you know.
There's nothing left.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not in the bit.
Yeah, true.
Obviously, Ice Wave going through, Chomp out. Stinger and Warhead once again proving that Warhead, you know, it couldn't stand up to the modern machines at this point in time anyway. And Stinger, very very dominant machine on the obviously live circuit in the US as Sewer Snake, and Stinger the Killer Bee is whoo.
Because I'm Stinger the Killer Bee, because I'm thinking, obviously, because it is like Sewer Snake, but again, I mean, they're renowned really for being good at taking out spinners. I mean, they've beaten Tombstone on the live circuit, on the live circuit several times. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the guy's name. Who's the guy? Who's the driver?
It's the Maxims, isn't it?
Billy. Oh, the Maxims, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the Maxims. Yeah, well, because he's like one of America's best robot drivers, isn't he? If I'm right in thinking.
I would put him up there, yes.
He's considered one of the best. Like, you know, over here you say, you mentioned best drivers of all time. You mentioned, you know, you get George Francis, you get Kim Davis, you get Graham Bone for modern series.
Michael Oates.
You get Michael Oates, you get Will Thomas, you know. But over in America, he's definitely one of the big guys over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. He's a guy where on record he's winning as long as you don't see his wheels.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Next fight, obviously Stinger winning. Warhead go home with not a lot to talk about really. Warrior Clan and Ghost Raptor. This is interesting because obviously, as we mentioned, Ghost Raptor was minus its spinning bar, but it did have the lifter still. And Warrior Clan just ground down to a halt. I don't exactly know what happened to it.
Yeah, once that outer disc stops spinning, that's the whole deal behind Warrior Clan, where that is spinning and its flipper is powered by that flywheel.
Oh wow!
So once that stops, everything dies.
And that was it.
It's basically the same thing as, you know how Spam in Series 6 had that prong that was powered by the kinetic energy of its flywheel.
Yes.
Well, basically do that with a flipper. And actually put some decent engineering behind it, and actually make sense, and actually make it worth its while, and that's what you get Warrior Clan.
Oh, right, okay, that makes some sense, I guess. But Ghost Raptor somehow making its way through against Warrior Clan, which looked impressive in round 1, but sadly didn't really get much going for it against Ghost Raptor, did it? Next up, Bronco and Plan X. Not much of a fight, really.
Very quickly.
Yeah, not much of a fight.
Blink and you would have missed it.
Yeah, Bronco goes in, Plan X is over, job done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Clean, efficient.
It got thrown as out of the arena as it possibly could get thrown out of the arena.
Well, Plan X is a big boy.
Basically.
Yeah. I didn't want to turn around and say foregone conclusion.
But it pretty much was.
But, yeah, foregone conclusion. No offence, Lisa, if you're watching. You're not, but no offence if you are.
Well, if you put something in that doesn't have a Shremek, I mean... It's bound to happen against a flipper like that.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, isn't it? So that was pretty much a really short fight, unfortunately. We didn't really get to see much of those two fighting. Bite Force and Hypershock, actually quite a close fight, this one. Two really well-engineered machines.
I put this up there as one of the really better fights of the series, because you really didn't know who was going to win until the inevitable happened.
Yeah, Hypershock, sadly... It's a brilliant machine in BattleBots, Hypershock. Its reliability isn't its strong point. It goes hard and then it goes home normally, because it just hasn't got the longevity. I'm hoping in season 3 we'll get to see more of Hypershock, but in season 1 and 2 it looks good. It goes good in the first round or so, and then it just kind of peters out, which is quite sad because it's a beautiful, beautiful machine. Bite Force, once again, very effective.
Yeah,
it is one of my it is probably one of my favourite ones of the reboot. Definitely Hypershock, and it is a shame.
Yeah. It comes back pretty strong again later. So I mean, keep an eye out for it.
Oh yeah.
It's essentially Cedric Slammer on steroids.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. We'll move on to Lockjaw and Overhaul Part 2, and this is a much different fight. This is Overhaul on top throughout.
Yeah. Because this wasn't at all, done on purpose. This was just random selection. Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I tell you what, this was a good fight. I really enjoyed this fight.
Yeah.
You got to see a little bit of heat coming out of Lockjaw, which I guess maybe probably didn't help that it really couldn't get off of its claw. It kind of was stuck at that point.
I think
and...
the problem...
I've never seen a robot do a handstand to death.
I think the issue
that's new.
I think the issue they had is Lockjaw in this particular fight.
It got Lockjaw.
One of its wheels were punctured and it couldn't drive forward, and I think it affected the other drive wheel that was touching the floor, and it couldn't actually go anywhere. So the front two wheels that could have got it down couldn't get it down. Mm-hmm. And that was job done, really.
Oh.
Yeah. Sad times. Lockjaw...
It's ironic, actually, Sam. It is ironic, actually, Sam, because you did turn around and say earlier that Overhaul looks like something like if you touch it, you get tetanus.
There you go.
The tetanus jab does help you get rid of Lockjaw.
Hey, that's actually quite funny.
Wow.
Yes!
Almost like you knew.
That's like the most...
How many episodes are we in now? And I finally said a funny joke.
Do you know what? That's probably the most well-constructed pun I've ever heard you do, Anderson. Well done. I'm so proud of you. Well done,
Thank you.
We'll move on to some more bullying. So Tombstone and Radioactive. Good God.
About as well as you could have put it.
Can I just say this right now, right, by the way? Sorry, just quickly. This just shows you how uncouth Radioactive is, and the fact that it actually won its battle in the previous round, unlike the 4 wildcards which lost their previous battle, yet it was seeded lower than all 4 of them.
I will say, credit where it's due. It didn't die after the first hit like Counter Revolution did. Credit where it's due, and as well as that, credit where it's due. They took it really well. The guys at Radioactive, they really did take it with good spirits. I think it was a very entertaining fight. Ray talking smack to them. It's great. I love that.
Well, am I right in thinking that Radioactive was made armoured in some sort of plastic?
It was HDPE, yeah.
I was going to say it sure looked like it.
Yeah, it was. I believe they mentioned it was plastic pods in the show, but I can't remember exactly. There wasn't much fight, was there, really?
No, it was a beatdown. It was bullying. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Moving on, Witch Doctor and Overdrive. This is a really good fight. It was entertaining as all hell.
Mm-hmm.
It was, Overdrive itself isn't a bad machine. It's just Witch Doctor's quite a good one, and I think it did the damage where it needed to on the wheels, which obviously affected it.
This is an active weapon versus a non-active weapon, kind of showing you maybe the benefits of having a deadly disc at the front of your robot.
Mm-hmm. Anderson, much to add to this fight?
Not really. It was a pretty good fight, really. I'll be honest. I was actually surprised Witch Doctor won. I thought Overdrive had a chance at this one. I liked Overdrive. It was basically like a sort of mini biohazard with 4-wheel drive, and I thought that kind of weapon with that kind of drive system would work really well, especially against Witch Doctor, which has got exposed sides and rear. But it just shows you anything can happen in robot combat, really, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It can.
Yeah. The thing with Overdrive, like its weapon in concept is very good, but it's just very, very slow in actually getting up and down for what it needs to be. And Christian Karlberg, I mean, he's built tons of robots for BattleBots and other such events. Overkill, Minions, to name a few. But I mean, maybe not his best outing. But I mean, it was definitely a cool design. I mean, it could have done better, but against something like Witch Doctor, something that can really put the voodoo magic on you, it just wasn't meant to be. I
have to say, it may seem like we've kind of skipped through these last 16 fights fairly quickly. A lot of them were over and done with very quickly. Like there's not much to talk about. They were most of them were one-sided as hell. The exception probably being Bite Force and Hypershock, but other than that, most of them were just one and done. They really were.
Yeah.
That is about to change though, as we move on to the quarterfinals. Bronco and Stinger. I say that this is pretty one-sided as well.
Yeah.
I know, Anderson, do you feel that Stinger went with the wrong weapon here, don't you?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think they would have benefited more from their big front plow wedge that they used the previous two fights. The problem with the lifting fork spike things that they used was that there was a big gap between them, and Bronco was just the right size to fit through that gap and get underneath them. Had they entered with the oh, sorry, that sounded rude. But if they entered with the plow scoop, I think they would have had much more of a chance of defending off the flipper. Yeah, definitely.
I agree.
I have to say, you don't get many out of the arenas in BattleBots. This is one. This is one.
This is the one place in the arena where you're stuck. That's it. I mean, this is not something like I'm sure that they thought of, like, oh yeah, something will get stuck there, sure. But now, I mean, it's a feature.
Yeah, this is the out of the arena zone, which, like, obviously Robot Wars has always been about out of the arenas. Well, it's been about out of the arena since Series 3, and obviously in the reboots it was a lot harder to do so with the higher walls. But obviously some teams managed to find out a way to do it. Eruption, Apollo.
Yeah, Michael Oates has quite the eye for the outside of the arena.
Yeah, whereas in BattleBots there's no real flip out area apart from this tiny little corner, and that's exactly where Bronco put Stinger, which is pretty impressive when you think about it.
Very good tactics.
Right where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm guessing he intended to do that, but if so, that's great tactics for you.
Yeah, you can only do what's in front of you, and obviously they put it in just the right place for it to fly out the arena, and Bronco sails through to the semi-finals. The next fight, Tombstone and Witch Doctor. Now this fight, I think, is so unfortunate for Witch Doctor. I know, Anderson, I know you're not the biggest Witch Doctor fan, but even you've got to admit...
I admit they were unlucky here. Oh, yeah, God, were they unlucky.
Yeah, I think one more hit, they could have survived one more hit, they'd have beaten them.
Steve, you are an expert on Tombstone. I to believe you like BattleBots. What exactly is that spinning bar made of? Thickness, material? Go.
It's some kind of tool steel. I would assume. But seeing something like that, just sheer, like the energy, like oh my God, just the fact that just look at the cross section of that bar and the fact that it sheared. I'm pretty sure it's some kind of tool steel. I'd have to double check that. I'd have to look at my sources, but oh man, I mean,
it's
not the thinnest thing in the world either. It's got to be at least an inch or two thick.
Easily.
And that thing was basically snapped in half.
Yeah, it pretty much was.
The power needed to do that. And I tell you what, I mean, Witch Doctor, okay, I'm not the biggest fan of Witch Doctor, but I will have to admit they were really unlucky to have landed upside down on that hit. And I tell you what, this was the battle which showed me just how far robots had come, because growing up over here, Robot Wars has been off the air for years. Spinners were then banned in the live circuit. So, of course, I haven't really seen many spinners over the years because I know Americans still had them all. But over here, heavyweight spinners have been banned from the live circuit due to safety reasons, all that crap. Not like we actually care about the human beings, but whatever. And so, of course, this was like my first real, obviously this series, I'd already been blown away a bit by how much more spinners had on them. But this match just blew me away. I mean, they're both robots. I mean, again, these are heavy machines. They were just sending each other flying across the arena or the battle box, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, the fact that Tombstone's bar was literally snapped in half, you just don't expect to see something like that. And yeah, this match this year, my chin hit the floor. I was shocked.
Yeah, it makes it that much more of a shame that Witch Doctor just couldn't manage to land on its wheels and didn't have a Shremek at this time.
Yes. Yeah. And I think credit where it's due. They put up a great fight, and I think they were pretty much the only ones, bar one more robot that stood up to Tombstone for as long as it did. Again, probably could have won it had it just survived one more hit on its wheels, but you know what? Them's the breaks. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't, and this time they didn't. Yeah. So Tombstone just about squeaking through against Witch Doctor.
Very weird to even say that it squeaked through with a robot like Tombstone.
Yeah, I know, right? It's ridiculous, but sometimes you get unlucky, and or lucky, and I think this is very much Ray riding his luck and just about sneaking through with a tombstone. Next up is Bite Force and Overhaul, two very similar concepts in terms of weaponry. I think that in fact Bite Force went for the sort of grabbing arm and lifting combo, much like Overhaul in this fight, and this was a really good, close, tense fight, and I honestly think it could have gone the other way.
It was a battle between two very similar robots.
Yeah.
And both utilising their particular strengths. I think what won it overall for Bite Force was just a bit more traction.
Mm-hmm.
The shuffling legs did have traction, but I just think that the tracks had a bit more on Bite Force.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I think that might have just been it.
I think had the fight been another 30 seconds or 20 seconds longer, they would have got them over the wall. I think that's what they're aiming to do, try and get them over the wall in the corner, much like Bronco did to Stinger, but it just didn't have the reach and didn't have the time.
So it was just, I think Bite Force in this particular fight was a little bit fortunate that the match ended when it did. But yeah, it was it was one of those fights where it was an apple versus another apple. Like you can't tell them apart. Like it's because they're very. They looked similar, especially with the weaponry that Bite Force chose to use for this fight, and I think they did do that kind of as a way. It's like, all right, we have the better gripper, and we're going to show you that we do.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that Overhaul did struggle with is because it was so vast and so big. I think it was easier to grab, and like they had less sort of way of escaping Bite Force, whereas Bite Force was a little bit more compact and was able to drive around them. I think that's what won them the fight as well. It was a really close fight. I wouldn't have liked to have been a judge in that one. I really wouldn't. Yeah. Yeah,
it was a tough one to call, but I think, having looked back at it, I think they chose the right robot, and I think for further on in the competition, like for the fights that we get from Bite Force coming up, I mean it's kind of hard to think of not winning this fight.
Yeah,
potentially. I think perhaps the closest battle in BattleBots, probably even BattleBots history, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of other fight in BattleBots that was. I mean, you might know of a few more than me, Steve. I don't know.
Well, this was one of those fights where they actually had to go inspect the robots for damage, because that's a Robot Wars thing, right?
We're on Hypnotist 101 territory here. Jesus, I mean that's close.
Yeah, some legit damage here, boys. It was a cracking fight, and I think those two teams in particular put on a good show. They really did. Speaking of good, this is an interesting fight. I thought it was going to be over very quickly, and it was, but not the way I expected. Ice Wave and Ghost Raptor with the aptly named De-Icer on the top of Ghost Raptor. Which at this point I'm thinking, okay, it deserves to die now. Oh wait, never mind.
It's one of those things where like I was a little against it at first because it's like, oh, he didn't bring that weapon to the show. He made it on site. This, that, and the other. So I was a little bit kind of iffy about it. But like, I mean, how else are you going to beat something that has such a nasty weapon on it?
And he did so well. I love his "You're mine now, bitch." That was great. I love that. That's brilliant. Some great trash talk in there from Chuck. And in fairness, his strategy was perfect. He got him right in the de-icer and just pushed him over.
Chuck likes making it to the semis.
He does.
It's a shame. But at the end of the day, the best robot won. Although I did hear that the Ice Wave losing was met with a frosty reception.
Oh, good God! There's gonna be a real cold front coming across in a minute.
Bloody! Hang on. Oh, that's right. Okay, I just think all the people that were moaning about it, they were snowflakes.
Oh no, that's terrible. Well, Ghost Raptor is a wily old dinosaur of a machine, so they managed to get through quite well. And Chuck Fitzer.
I tell you what, Ghost Raptor really gets into the spirit of things.
Oh my good God, that's brilliant! I love that. In fact, again, as Steve you mentioned, Chuck Fitzer does love a good semi-final, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. He seems to find his way there, no matter what the circumstance. Sometimes it's just a place that he likes to be.
Yeah. Except for season 2, we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, then we'll get to that.
Yeah, that's the end of Ice Wave, sadly. We don't get to see Ice Wave carry on any further. Tombstone and Bronco, the first of the semi-finals. What a good fight this was. Interesting to see.
Fantastic. It was. I thought it was going to be a lot quicker than it was. I'll be honest. I didn't give Bronco a hope in hell in this match when I first watched it, and for very fair reasons. But fair play, it lasted longer than I thought it would. I'll give it credit where it's due.
Yeah, this is very reminiscent of a really of an older BattleBots fight. I think it was season 3, on Comedy Central, where it was the Matador, which is a very kind of similar looking robot to Bronco, against a robot called Mo.
Yes, the Marvel of Engineering.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was a bar spinner that just decided, I don't think Bronco needs its wheels anymore. I think I'm gonna relieve him of that of those.
I will say it was a great fight. We got to see some lovely titanium sparks thrown off of Bronco. I loved the idea that Bronco went with the long tongue to get underneath Tombstone while it was still spinning and affect it like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great idea.
That tongue worked for them in the past. I mean, that's how T-B Hazard in the middleweight championship in season 5.
Yes, that's how Hazard finally lost a fight.
Mm-hmm. It's true, and I think it was really good to see that they used a little bit of ingenuity to get around a problem, which was obviously a big problem. Tombstone is quite the opponent, and I think Bronco deserve a lot of credit. But obviously, coming up against a machine like Tombstone and Ray Billings is it's tough going. But he had to go. He had to go for one more.
Ray Billings with his ego, with his ego. And they like to play that up on TV, but he's a really nice guy. But he totally plays that up for the show, and I love it. My dad not so much.
Ray is the ultimate wholesome guy. He's such a lovely bloke, but I think it was great to see him play the pantomime villain. And he went for one more, and it could have done a lot of damage. A lot of the batteries all flew out.
Yeah, it looked pretty ugly.
I want someone to embrace the villainy more, though. I want someone to come back the next series with a cape and an evil mustache and a white cat on their lap stroking. I want this.
Well, we did ask. We did
get
ask
one with a cape.
We did get one with a cape. We asked Craig Danby to do it for Series 9, but he didn't do it.
I know, he just wore a bloody fox onesie. What the hell was that? Just trying to appease all the fairies in the world or something. For Christ's sake, Craig.
He already built a robot about a fox. We're waiting, I mean, in fairness, if he's going to be stuck with that, he might as well embrace it at this point.
I suppose, yeah.
We actually do love you, Craig. I am sorry. Come back for season 3, please. Come on, RoboCast. We'll miss you.
Yes.
We'll move on to the other semi-final between Bite Force and I think Ghost Rapture at this point was just kind of hoping for the sweet release of death, to be honest with you.
It was thinking along at this point.
And I'm honestly glad that Ghost Rapture lost, because I think a final of Ghost Rapture and Tombstone just would not have been fun.
It would have been foregone conclusion. You're like, all right, cool. This is gonna be just a wreck.
yeah, and Bite Force controlled the fight well. They did what they needed to do, and they did it well. And much like they had quietly throughout the tournament, Bite Force, they were never really spectacular, but they got the job done. And I think that's what was crucial about their title push.
They dominate the round. It's not a robot that's going to shred you to pieces, but it's a robot that you're going to have a hard time controlling and will control you if you let it.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is why I can't stand it when people turn around and say, Robot Combat's all about the damage and all that. No, it's not. All right, it's about driving skill and control. Okay.
I'd like to know what that impersonation is.
So Reddit users mostly. There's one particular bloke on the Facebook page. He knows who he is if he's watching. He knows who he is. Who doesn't believe in driving control. He believes that should be left for F1. But anyway, but the thing is, without it, you can't do anything. And that's why Panic Attack was so successful in the original series, because it was able to outmaneuver the big deadly
favorite
weaponry.
Robot Wars robots.
Yeah, and get underneath and do get the job done. Bite Force is exactly the same in that regard. I mean, yes, I agree. Big weaponry and damage is part of it. You need to be able to back up that control with something.
Absolutely.
But you can't just go in there. I mean, I think Nightmare proves you can't just go in there willy-nilly with a big spinny thing and hope to win.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very true. And I think Bite Force is the epitome of the control bot. I think it works so well in Season 1. Which brings us to the final, which is Tombstone, which is the big weapon, against Bite Force, which is the ultimate control bot. Now,
Right. That's basically what we were just talking about. Like, what wins, control or the death bar?
Now, I don't know about you guys. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So let's say Tombstone's bar doesn't stop working. Who wins the final then?
I still think Bite Force. And the reason I say that is because it was dominating the fight up to that point anyway.
It was.
Yes. You know, you could argue that the Tombstone hitting its wedge with its spinner, was it technically doing something? But it was Bite Force.
I smell Fight Court. I smell a Fight Court episode.
Mike, let's get on it.
For me, it's just Bite Force. I said it before, and I'll say it again. It was just built perfectly to kill spinners.
And it did. And Tombstone just couldn't get through that wedge. It was cutting holes in it, but that was, it was fine. It was just bouncing off, and Bite Force was the one controlling the fight. And I think these were the right two to have in the final. Bite Force was quietly going about his business throughout the whole tournament and did well to make the final. And Tombstone, the spectacular spinner, was obviously going to be the choice that you wanted to have in the final. I think these two...
The way I look...
Go on.
Sorry, go on.
My point is, it was a great combination, much like Robot Wars in series 8, 9, and 10. The big spinner made it to the final, which is what you want to see, and then a very good, a well controlled robot was there in the final with them to see if they could stop them. I think it worked out quite nicely there, and I think it worked out really nicely here too.
In my opinion, this is one of a very, very, very few amount of times where the two best robots of a particular series or season in any shape or form of robot combat made it to the final two.
Mm-hmm.
The other times are, of course, series 9 and 10 of Robot Wars. Let's be fair. Carbide Interruption are basically the two best British robots.
They were the classic sport, definitely.
Yeah. And let's face it. Let's face it as well. Eruption probably would have made it in Series 8 too if it wasn't for a dodgy decision against Storm 2.
A dodgy decision, yeah. And another one, when you guys can disagree with me all you want here, but Chaos 2 and Hypnodisc in Series 3.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, in my opinion, they were the best two robots in the series.
I agree.
That's pretty much it. I mean, I can't really think of any other series where the two best robots...
I'd argue Tornado and Razor.
Yep, I can understand that. I can agree with that. I can see where you're coming from there.
Mm-hmm.
Another good one. Another one. Oh God, what are they called? Panzer Mark 4 and
Juggernaut 3.
Juggernaut 3. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for Robotica, definitely that was Robotica Season 3. Definitely the two best bots of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was actually going to refer to Extreme Warriors Season 2.
Oh yeah, they did meet up there too.
They met there too.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool actually.
But wait, what was it called? Not Tyrannobot.
It was Tricerabot.
That's the one, Tricerabot. Yeah, that and Panzer Mark 4.
Yeah, I was thinking Panzer Mark 3 and Robotica because that's totally a thing that happened.
They were the two best in that series as well, in my opinion, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was just a fight where there was a lot of it was cagey, like it was cool, like there were moments where you thought, oh, Tombstone's smoking, oh, they're gonna lose, oh, Bite Force lost drive a little bit, like you noticed that like later on in that fight he's having a hard time maneuvering, so it all the way to the end it was just it was a good way to cap the series off.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not quite cap the series off. Obviously, Bite Force did end up winning the Giant Nut against Tombstone, which is. It's quite interesting to see, the control bot can win the series still. It isn't all about the big spinner, and we had a nice little rumble at the end. Obviously not like the old series where you had about 20 robots in the arena at once. It was just the 3, which I'll take what I can get. Between Witch Doctor.
I think the reason they didn't do that is... Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you first. Go on.
Okay, yeah, I think like the one reason they didn't do that is actually because of one of the robots that's actually in the ring. With launching something through the roof, which I guess to kind of control that down. I mean, the box is built so much better now than it was years and years ago. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I guess to kind of keep the mayhem down a little bit, and maybe to keep eyes where they're supposed to be, because there's so much going on in those rumbles. Mm-hmm. Unless you see it live, and even if you do see it live, you're missing things.
Oh yeah.
So for TV's sake, it was good to just have 3 or even 4. Sometimes would have been fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously our rumble is. Witch Doctor, Nightmare, and Overhaul. 3, pretty fun entries in the series. And Nightmare of all machines ends up winning it.
How
Huh.
about that?
Huh.
How about that, Anderson?
bloody time, guys. About bloody time.
I will say, Witch Doctor very unlucky to get caught just on its end. That's so unlucky.
One of the funniest lines from Chris Rose the whole series. Come on, Poppy, get up!
With a little shaman trying to nudge it off. Come on.
Oh, it's so funny.
And he pushed it to the hammer of all places. Like, what are you doing, kid? And obviously, Overhaul and Nightmare
How did I raise you?
Yeah, Nightmare and Overhaul actually had a really good scrap, and then obviously Nightmare decapitated Overhaul, which was great to see. It was a really good little fun fight at the end of the series. 3 good machines fighting it out, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it at least.
Yeah, I kind of wish we saw more of them.
What?
I wish we saw more of them.
Yeah.
Like more rumbles, please. See, this rumbles work.
It's true. Go on.
They they could have tried to have been that good in the main competition, couldn't they?
Burn. No, it was a good fight. It was a good fight.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good entertainment, and fair play to Nightmare. It actually deserved to win, so I'll give it credit where it's due.
So what do we make of season 1 of BattleBots overall? We'll get to Anderson first.
Yeah, like I said, there were some problems, but again, in all fairness, for its first series back after such a long gap, you got to expect a bit of, to be a bit rough around the edges, and we got some great moments, some great battles, some great machines, and at the end of the day, like I said, very rarely do you get the 2 best robots of the series in the final, so there's always that to be happy about as well. So I think I'm very happy saying this is a very, very solid return.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, obviously you were, I'm sure, pretty hyped. Did it live up to the expectation you had?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, there's some things. Of course, I do agree. There was certain things that made it a little rough around the edges to begin with. Like at any time you get a new production team, and especially when Robot Wars came back for Series 8, there were a lot of little things that could have been done better. Clearly, filming being one of them. You just felt like you were disconnected from the fights, at least for Robot Wars' sake. But like for here, they were still figuring things out. I think it definitely shows in the later series like what they learned and like how to. Because let's put it this way: the commentators for this had never done anything like this before.
No.
So this was something completely out of their comfort zone, and I'm so happy they did it. So it's overall, I'm pretty happy with how it came back, but it definitely left things open for improvement. But season 2 came through, I think, on a lot of things that like maybe it would have been good to see season 1 do. But it's overall a pretty solid entry. I agree with Anderson. I'm pretty happy to say that.
Yeah, for my 2 cents, I think season 1, it was a good starting point. It showed that yes, Robot Combat is definitely viable as a TV show and an entertainment show. Even today.
You hear that, BBC? It's viable.
God damn it! You had to do it.
Steve. Too soon.
Too soon, bro. Too soon.
Sorry, was that your payback for all the American jokes I've been making this entire podcast?
It wasn't directed at you. It was directed at. Ugh.
Going back to BattleBots, I think it is this series. You can tell it was rushed together and a lot of the machines were kind of rushed together. Season 2, which we'll get to, I think next week. I think we're doing it next week. It takes season 1 and then just goes with it, and it is something special. Like I really think BattleBots season 2, ABC is probably the best Robot Combat show ever. Maybe Series 10 of Robot Wars. I'm kind of torn between the two. I've got a lot of personal, love for Robot Wars Series 10, but I think season 2 of BattleBots ABC is something very, very special, which I hope you'll join us for next week when we talk about that. But for now, that is that's the end of season 1. We did it! We did it!
Yay! We finally did it.
Thank you very much for watching.
Just to put this into context, guys, we've been trying to do this now for like a month.
Yep. and me
It would always be like, oh, I'm busy. Oh no. Oh, my computer's shit. Oh, I have to go do housework. Oh, I have to go visit my family.
Yeah, it's all my fault, really. But in fairness,
it was almost mine. My microphone wasn't working.
Yeah, and myself and Steve, we actually started to review season 1 back when it started airing in the UK on Spike. I think it was about 2 years ago now. So this has been a long time in the making, and I think with BattleBots returning for season 3, the time was right, and we finally got there, guys. But anyway, thank you very much for watching the RoboCast once again. I've been Sam Elliott 64.
I've been Anderson 9132.
And I've been Steve, the American Killjoy.
And we will see you next week for Battlebots Season 2. We'll see you that. Bye-bye.